Welcome to IT Pro TV. I'm your host, Don Pizzetta.
Coming at you live from San Francisco, California.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
Hello, and thank you for watching IT Pro TV, helping you level up with IT learning everywhere you go. I'm your host, Zach Memis, for this episode of CompTIA Linux Plus, editing files with Vi, or Vim, or V, but we're going to call it Vi for right now. And Don Pizzetta is here to help us out. Don, good to see you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here and to help everybody sort through this identity crisis we're having. We are going to be taking a look at how to edit files by using Vi, the text editor with many different names. There is, oddly enough, no official way to pronounce the thing, so you can pronounce it however you want. But it is one of the most prolific text editors available in the Linux world. And so in this episode, we're going to learn a little bit about how Vi works, how to get in and use it. We'll see editing a file, working with data, saving, and getting out of it. All of the kind of go-to day-to-day operations that you'll use a text editor for. So that's all coming up right here in this episode.
So, starting right off, can you give us a basic overview of how Vi works?
Absolutely. So it's a text editor, and like many Unix commands or Linux commands, we call the application, and then we call a file name that we want to edit. But unlike a lot of other programs, Vi is extremely non-user friendly. It's a very unintuitive program. So, if I gave you a word processor like Microsoft Word, and let's say you've never used it before, you can kind of stumble through and figure out Microsoft Word. It's got menus and things. Or maybe you've used Word and now you go to OpenOffice and you fire up its documents, right? Or Google Docs or whatever. You can kind of stumble through it and figure it out. Vi is not like that. You cannot stumble through and figure it out. Many of the commands are hidden away behind different command modes. And in order to interact with the editor, we've got to know about those command modes. So let me show you a little diagram here to kind of explain what I'm talking about. When you go into Vi, you're immediately going to be put into what's called command mode. And there's a number of commands you can execute from there. Things like deleting a line or searching for data, replacing a line that you can do while you're in that mode. But the moment you press the letter I, you move into what's called insert mode. And in insert mode, now you're able to start typing. You type out all your text and you do things. But the command mode commands don't work in insert mode. Insert mode has its own set of commands. You then press escape to get back into command mode. And there's a third mode called execute mode. When you type a colon, you'll drop into execute mode, and then you can execute a whole series of commands there. So 3 different modes inside of one text editor. And if you just fire up Vi and start typing, you're actually going to be issuing out commands in command mode as opposed to inserting text. And that's usually the first mistake people make is they fire up the editor, they start typing, and things start going crazy on their screen because what they're typing isn't actually going into insert mode. So we need to understand that about Vi before we really even get started with it. So let me show you an example. I'm going to take a file and start to edit it. So here on my workstation, if I get into my documents folder and take a look, I've got the full text from the novel Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Blah, blah, blah. So,
Sorry,
there we go.
I had to. It's done. I won't do it again.
So we've got the full text. It's a pretty big file if you look at it. Hang on, let me do a ls-lh. So 864K of content. That's a lot of text. And if I edit that, some editors, when they start loading large documents into memory, can start to kind of freeze up and have problems. Vi is actually great for editing large documents because it manages memory very, very efficiently. That's a big improvement over software like Microsoft Word, for example. If you open up a really large document, it gets kind of sluggish and slow while it loads it all into RAM. Vi works in little slices as it moves through and loads a document, so it doesn't really care how big the document is. But if I want to edit this one, I can type VI, and then I can specify the file that I want to work with. I want to work with dracula.txt. And so when I run that, it's going to take me into the editor. And it's not very flashy, right? When you look at the editor, I see the text laid out right here. And at the very bottom, I have a status line. And the status line is just this little part right here at the bottom. And that's it. Everything else that you're seeing is text from inside of the document. And that status line is telling me the name of the file. Mine's dracula.txt. I can see that it is DOS formatted. That's referring to the line feeds at the end of each line. In the Microsoft and DOS world, at the end of every line is a CRLF, a carriage return, and a line feed. And those are terms that really go all the way back to the typewriter days, right? A line feed means we move down a line. And a carriage return means we take our cursor from the right side and move it all the way to the left side. If you've ever used a typewriter, you would actually grab a little handle and pull the carriage right back over to the other side. That's all done digitally here, so it's called a CRLF. But in the Unix world, they don't do the carriage return. They just do the line feed. They say just move down to the next line, and it's assumed that you go back to the beginning. All right. It's two different formats, and Vi is smart enough to figure out which format you're using and maintain that. So do be aware. A lot of times, if you create a document on a Linux box, it's created in the Unix format, so just line feeds. And then when you open it in Windows, all the text is in one big long line instead of nice little paragraphs like you had it. That's because it's missing the carriage return. So something to be aware of. All right, then it tells me how many lines the document has. This one has 15,973 lines, right? Now, I mean, there's some blank lines and stuff, so it's not all Bram Stoker's typing, but it is a lot of lines. This is a fairly big document. And then I can see how many characters. I have 883,160 characters typed throughout this document. Over to the right, we can see that 7,0-1. As I move my cursor up and down, it's telling me what line number I'm on. And if I move my cursor to the right, it's telling me what character I'm on. So I'm on line 5, character 23 right now. Or I can go down here to line, let's go to line 13, character 24, and move back and forth. This is really handy if you're troubleshooting scripts. You ever get an error that says error in script on line 12? What's on line 12? I don't know. Well, you can fire up an editor like Vi, open up that document and go right to line 12 and figure out what's going on and kind of troubleshoot it. So it's kind of nice to have that. And then the very last thing I have on my screen, it's actually covered up by my head, says the word top, just letting me know that I'm at the top of the document, right? And as I navigate through, you can actually set up headings in the document where that'll change as you move through. I don't believe this one has any headings, so it's just going to switch to a percentage. Yeah, so it changes to a percentage as I go down, and I'm seeing I'm 1%, 2%. Let me know how far through this document I am. And it's it's a big document, so it'll take a while to get kind of all the way through it, but I can have a really good idea of where I'm at. All right. Now, if I jump in here and say, okay, I'm ready to start typing, old Bram, he didn't know what he was doing. I'm gonna make this better. So I want to add in an entry in here. I'm gonna add, maybe Zach's our new vampire hunter, so I want to stick him in there. I would go to a blank and start typing, right? So if I want to type like Zach is a vampire hunter, so Zach is. Notice how Zach didn't show up?
It didn't.
And then, but is did. Okay. What happened is, as I started typing, the Z, the A, the C, the H, it treated all those as commands. It was expecting to perform a command. Well, there isn't a Z command, or actually there's an A command. And so it picked one of those up as a command and then did something. And it wasn't until I finished typing ZACH that it finally hit on a command that moved me into insert mode. See at the bottom that I'm now in the insert mode?
Mm-hmm.
And in insert mode, you can type. And so I could have actually come in and type, Zach is a vampire hunter. And now it's working properly because I'm in insert mode. But commands aren't going to process right now because I'm in insert mode. And if I hit escape on my keyboard, now I'm back into command mode. So that little note down there at the bottom of the screen where it was telling me, hey, you're in insert mode, that's really important. We need to know about that, all right? I'm in command mode right now because the bottom is blank. I know that, right? If I press I on my keyboard, I moves me into insert mode. And then I hit escape to get out of it. And then if I want to execute a command, like let's say I want to save this document, right? Well, to save the document, the command is W for write. I want to write the document to disk. But if I just press W right now, nothing happens, okay? So if I want to save, I have to get into execute mode. And we do that by typing a colon. So if I type a colon, you see it appear at the bottom of the screen, not where my cursor was way up here, just at the bottom of the screen, a colon appears. And I can type a W and press enter, and it saves the document. It just told me that it wrote to Dracula.txt. And so that's what this diagram is talking about. When we come into command mode, we're ready to issue certain commands. Not every command, but certain commands. And if we want to go into insert, we press I, and now we're in insert mode and we can type. We can press escape to move back out. And then we can type a colon to enter execute mode and start typing commands. And either you finish the command and press enter, or you hit escape, and it takes you back to command mode. So we can kind of move in between each one of them, right? So let me just show a couple of examples of how we can do things more than one way. Let's say, for example, I want to delete a line, right? if I want to delete a line, there's more than one command for doing it. When I'm in regular command mode, I can move to a line like, well, let me find that Zach is a vampire hunter. And I decide I don't want that line in there anymore. All right. I can press D on my keyboard, which does nothing. And then I can press D a second time, and there goes Zach, right? So DD, two Ds, tells it I want to delete that line. That's a command mode command. But I can also delete lines from execute mode. I can just type a colon so that I'm in execute mode, and I can just type a single letter D. And when I press enter, there it goes, right? So two different ways to do the same thing. And why would I choose one way over another? Well, it usually comes down to speed. You know, if I'm somewhere and I want to delete 3 lines really quick, I can just hit DD, 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 like that, and there go the 3 lines, versus doing colon D, enter, colon D, enter, colon D, enter. You know, sometimes one way is faster than another. But at the end of the day, it usually comes down to personal preference. Just whichever way you like. There's several different ways to perform each command, so you just pick the one that you're the most comfortable with. But those are kind of examples right there where we can issue commands in one mode or another. I can also delete lines through, you know, some other different techniques we'll see a little bit later in the show. But that's a good example right there of command mode and execute mode.
Well, Don, can we work with multiple lines at the same time?
You know, we could. So I was deleting stuff there one at a time, right?
Mhm.
So, you know, I hit DD 6 times ultimately to delete those 3 lines. Or I did colon D 3 times to be able to delete those lines. You know, that's one line at a time. But you can do ranges. Ranges are where we grab more than one line at a time. And in order to do that, you need to know the line number. And I showed you a moment ago where the line number is in the bottom corner of our screen. So I'm on line 449 right now. And as I move along, you'll see more. Well, for me at least, it's kind of annoying to have to come through here and look at the line numbers this way. So in Vi, we can turn on line numbers. In fact, it's probably worth mentioning here that you might already have line numbers on. Your screen might look a little different than mine, right? Let me get out of this document. I'm going to get out of it real quick by just doing a colon Q. And when I do colon Q, that tells it I want to quit. And it's actually going to complain because I've made changes to the document and I haven't saved. And so if you want to exit, you have to add an exclamation point. So I'm going to do a colon Q exclamation point. So I want to exit the document. I don't want to save my changes. So it's going to throw them away, right?
Mhm.
I think I did already save some of my changes, but anyhow. So when I ran Vi, I immediately went into a file. But if you run Vi just by itself, you can run it and you'll get this screen right here that tells you a little bit about the version of Vi that you're running, okay? I'm on a CentOS machine. And in CentOS, it's actually not running the original Vi by default. Instead, it's running Vim. And Vim is Vi improved. Well, if you're running Ubuntu or Debian or Fedora, almost all of them ship with Vim instead of Vi. So the command you're typing is Vi, but it's really just alias to the Vim command, and you end up right in here. Vim adds a lot of stuff like colorization, code syntax validation, and things like that. There's really neat stuff to have versus the original Vi editor that was just a straight up text editor. Well, if you're running Vim improved, your operating system may have chosen to enable line numbers by default, or it may not have, right? In my case, it doesn't. I'm not seeing line numbers. If you type a colon, you can set session variables. And one of the session variables is whether we want it to display line numbers. And we can just type set number like that. So colon set space number. And when you run that, my screen changes a little bit. See, I've got a number 1 in the corner. I've got line numbers now. Well, that's not very spectacular here. But if I were to, let me quit out of that and go back into Dracula, and I'll do...
Sorry,
the,
I said I wouldn't do that.
it's hard to resist.
It's hard to do that.
So we have no sunlight in the studio, so
No,
we're at least
there
okay
isn't.
there. So when I do the colon set space number inside of Dracula, now I see line numbers on the left side of the screen. Now, personally, I always like to have the line numbers.
Yeah, I like that, Don.
So, but you might have noticed when I exited Vi and came back in, it didn't retain that setting, right? The settings can be stored inside of your own personal preferences, which are stored in a file in your home directory. Let me show you. I'm going to get out of this. So I'm going to switch back to my home directory. So I'll just do a cd space tilde. And in your home directory, you've got a number of files, but there's actually a number of hidden files in there as well. If you do an ls-la, you'll see all the hidden files. And what I'm looking for is a file called .vimrc, and I don't have one. So I don't have any preferences for Vim right now, which means I'm just going with the defaults, right? I'm going to create a file. I'll actually use Vi to edit its own preferences. And so I'm going to edit tilde / .vimrc. It's got to have a dot before the name. So .vimrc, that makes it a hidden file. And in that file, you can put whatever preferences you want to have. And so for me, I'm going to hit I to get into insert mode. And then I'm going to type set number, like that. Set number. That tells it I want to have line numbers by default. I can then press escape to get back to command mode and do a :W to save, and then a :Q to quit and get out. And now if I go back to editing Dracula, right? So I'm going to edit that file. Now the line numbers are on by default, and they'll be on forever, unless I unset number. But any file that I open is going to run off that default. And there's a ton of variables like that inside of Vim that you can modify to be able to tweak and improve that. Now, I kind of got off course here, Zach, because you were asking about, can I work with more than one line at a time? And I went on about line numbers. But the line numbers are important because I need to know the numbers if I want to work with more than one line. And the way it works here is, let's say I want to delete an entire paragraph, okay? I can find a paragraph. Wow, that's a big paragraph right there.
That's a big one.
I was hoping to find a short paragraph. There we go. So let's take this paragraph here that runs from line 539 all the way down to 550. And I just want to blow that paragraph away. Oh, actually, I guess I would need to get that extra empty line at the end too. So I want to knock out lines 539 all the way through 551. Well, I know that :D will delete a single line, right? But if I do a colon, I can then type a range of line numbers to specify for that delete command. So I could say : 539, 551 D. All right. And there's no spaces there. : 539, 551 D. That tells it : I'm going to run a command. And then the lines 539 all the way through 551. And then D is the delete command. That's the one that I want to wipe out. All right. And when I run that, that whole paragraph goes away. And that's that. You can also delete individual lines this way if you don't want to move your cursor. Like if I know I want to delete line 1000, I could scroll all the way to line 1000, or I could run : 1000 D. And then that's going to go and find line 1000 and remove it. Now, I'm not usually in the habit of deleting lines I can't see, so I don't use that very often. But the range command is really handy. And I'm doing it with delete, but later on we'll learn a little bit about like copy and other things, and you'll want to copy an entire range or gather data like that. And so you'll make more use of that. But that's how we work with more than one line at the same time. Setting those line numbers is certainly a valuable part of that.
So how would we perform a search in Vi?
All right. I mentioned I don't like to edit lines that aren't on my screen.
Right.
But when I've got a document that's 15,000 lines long, it can be really challenging to find things, right? So I know that this document is big. I want to find a line, and I'm looking for something. What was the doctor's name? Do you remember the doctor's name in Dracula?
Van Helsing. Dr. Van Helsing.
So I want to find the first entry about Van Helsing, right? So I want to search for that. Well, searching is really easy. All you do is type a / on your keyboard. When you type a / now I was in command mode, not in insert mode, because otherwise I'd just be typing a / into the text. So in command mode, if you type a /, you'll drop to a prompt. It's not a colon prompt. This is our search prompt. And I can now type a string. It is case sensitive. So if I'm looking for Van Helsing, I'm going to assume that the V and the H are capitalized. I don't know if there's going to be a space in between Van and Helsing, so I'll have to guess on that. It will
Want me to
matter.
tell you
Right?
the answer to that?
Do you know?
Yeah, it's one word. Van
It's
Helsing.
one word. Okay,
Yeah, it's
sweet.
one word, yeah.
So we will do / Van Helsing like that.
Yeah.
And when I run that and search, I think you might be wrong, Zach.
Oh, no.
I didn't find it. Or, I mean, maybe there's some umlauts or something I don't know about. So I'm going to do a / and we'll search for Van Helsing as
Separate 'em.
2 words. There we go.
Oh, I was wrong.
Burn. All right. So in this case,
I thought it was one word.
I'm able to find it. Now, the neat thing here is that it found it and it highlights it in yellow. Well, mine's defaulting to yellow. There's actually different Vim themes that are out there. So yours might highlight a different color. I'm pretty sure Ubuntu does pink or purple by default. So you might see a different coloring, but it does highlight it, which is nice. We find it. There it is. And I see it's more than one on this page. But the odds are there's lots and lots and lots more references of Van Helsing spread throughout my document. So the cool thing here is if I want to find more, I can type a / and just press enter. and it'll move to the next occurrence. And I can keep doing that, just hitting forward slash and pressing enter, and it's going to continue advancing like that from one to one, trying to find it. Now, that's one way to do it. Or I could press the letter N on the keyboard and see how it's advancing now. Just N over and over. That's a little faster than slash enter. Slash enter is really just repeating the previous search. N is just moving to the next instance. And that's a lowercase n. I know you guys can't see me pressing it on the keyboard here. If I do a capital N, it goes backwards. It actually searches for previous instances. If you see my line number, I'm on line 4,818. Now I'm on 4,692, 4,668, so it's getting smaller. I'm doing capital N's. So I always remember N for next, and then capital N, you just have to memorize. It's like unnext or something, I don't know. But so we can advance backwards and forward. You can do searches kind of forwards and backwards also. When I'm on a line, so right now I'm on line 4,634, and we type a forward slash, we're searching forward. It's going to find the next occurrence of that string after line 4,635 when I'm on. You could do a question mark as well. A question mark searches backwards. It's going to look before line 4,635, in my case, to be able to find that. And this is an example where providing a line number might actually be useful because you can just pick a line to start at. But in my scenario, it would just start right here on this line, and I could search backwards for some other character. Dracula actually hasn't been mentioned, so maybe I search backwards with a question mark, and it takes me way back to line 3005. So I jumped, over 1,600 lines to be able to jump over there and find that previous instance. So those are all different ways that we can kind of search through the document and locate things.
Well, does Vice support search and replace as well?
Yeah, I'm just searching, right? And so it finds things, and that's it. I'm enlightened. I find it, and I'm happy. But you can do a replace as well at the same time, where we just say, look, every time you find this particular string, swap it out with something else. So maybe the book's a little too scary, and so we want to change it. We decide that we don't want Dracula to be the star of this one. We want Kermit. We're going to make Kermit the Frog.
That'll be exciting.
Yeah, I know.
We've green blood.
We're probably going to get sued on this one, but it's all right. So, so if I wanted to search for Dracula, I would type a forward slash, and then I would just type in Dracula, right? That's the way we do that search. But if I want to replace it with something else, I can actually type another slash, and then whatever I want to change it to, okay? So I'm going to search for Dracula, and then, so forward slash Dracula, and then another forward slash, and Kermit, all right? And so I'm going to run that, and when I run it, it's going to bring up the next entry, so it finds Dracula there, and it gives me the kind of opportunity to go in and change that one. Actually, hang on, it changed the one previous, and now it's moved to the next one. It kind of just did it once. I'll tell you, normally when I'm doing search and replace, I don't want things to go just once. I want it to replace through the entire document. So I've got to be a little more specific with this search to get it to go everywhere. So if I want to replace it everywhere, I need to specify the line numbers. Remember, we just saw how we could run it across more than one line. So what we could do is, the easiest way is to use a little alias. I mean, if I know my beginning and my end numbers, which I don't, it's something like 1 and 15,000 or something like that, I could type 1, 15,000 and then do the search, right? Or I can use an alias. There's an alias %, okay? And with %, it says do the whole document, all right? So I don't have to remember my first and last number. But let's say that I just want to do a single paragraph, right? So I'm going to hit escape to get out of insert mode. And let's take this paragraph right here. I just want to change Dracula in this one paragraph. And so I can look, and it starts at 9,232, and it goes through 9,254. So I could do a colon, 9,232, comma, 9,254. And then I need to tell it I'm doing a search. And earlier, I just did a forward slash, and it knew I was doing a search. But here, because I provided line numbers, I have to do the letter S so that it knows I'm engaging in a search. So I'm just going to type S forward slash Dracula forward slash Kermit. So now it's just going to look between those two lines and change it out. When I press enter, I can now see Count Kermit has apparently landed in Whitby. So there he is, Count Kermit. Should have done Count Chocula or somebody.
Good. What would it be? Count Kermit.
So there we go. All right. But if I want to do the whole document, I'm going to use that percent alias. So let me do a colon again to get back into my execute mode. And I'm just going to do percent s/Dracula/Kermit. And now it's going to search the entire document. The bigger the document, the longer this will take. But when I say long, I'm talking about in computer terms. It's actually going to move really, really quick. And oddly enough, it only found Dracula 35 times in the substitution that I just did. That seems a little odd, but apparently the name doesn't actually come up that much. Well, we can do a quick verification, just kind of looking at some of these things. I just did something without thinking about it. Sometimes you want to jump line numbers. And I was all the way down at line 15,000 and so, whatever the last line was in my program. If you want to jump to a particular line, you can just type colon and then whatever line number you want. So if I want to jump to line 100, I can do colon 100 and press enter. And now I'm on line 100. So I'm used to doing it. And so I didn't think about it. I just did colon 1 and press enter to jump right to the top of the document. There's a few other aliases for that, but colon 1's the easiest. So I can jump right here though. And I can see the title of the book is now Kermit by Bram Stoker, as it was intended. And if let me do a forward search here for Kermit. I'll just do /Kermit. And so now we can see I was not able to light on any map or work giving the, this is hard to read, or work giving the exact locality of Castle Kermit, as there are no maps of this country. Yeah, well, there we go. But I found
Scary. Ooh.
that Bistritz, the post town named by Count Kermit, is a fairly well-known place. So there we go. We have created the horrific history of Count Kermit, the bloodsucker.
And so ends Editing Files with Vi, Chapter 1. And make sure you join us for Chapter 2. And before we move on, I think, Don, do you have something else you'd like to say?
Absolutely. Much like Bram Stoker's Dracula, which is very, very long, I have more that I want to share with you on Vi, like navigation steps and a few other things. So we're going to tackle those over in part 2. So be sure to stay tuned for that.
Good advice and more good advice. Make sure you see every single episode of CompTIA Linux Plus. You're going to be so glad you did, especially when that exam comes rolling around. And don't forget about supplementary information that's available in our course library that will do only one thing: help you be even more successful. So check that out as well. And tell everybody you know about IT Pro TV. IT Pro TV is binge-worthy. Thanks for watching. I'm Zach Memis.
And I'm Don Pizzette.
We will see you again soon.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.